when LaRouche called Obama Hitler, that was based. Oh, you're like a MAGA guy, but you're like a MAGA communist? You're a communist, but you support MAGA? Yeah. You want to know why I support MAGA? You want to know why I support Trump? The extent to which I support Trump as a communist with a capital C is the same extent to which the Democrats and libshit America have not learned from Trump. As soon as we can all learn from Trump, learn the lessons of Trump, as soon as we can all accept the way that Trump has fundamentally transformed politics in this country, as soon as we can accept that, I will be the first person to move on from Trump and just be like, yeah, fuck Trump, he's cringe. But because this country's still divided between people who are coping, who think we live in the open globalist society, this universalist America, and there's like two factions in this country. People who believe and understand how Trump has fundamentally transformed everything about how politics works, you know, how movements work, all of that. It's all been completely fucking transformed, right? And the other faction are the people coping, but they're overdosing on copium to the point, and I'm going to start looking at the camera because that's what I do now. It's they're overdosing on copium so severely that it's to the point of mental psychosis and derangement, and it's actually like dangerous, right? See the Dark Brandon shit and how they're all like becoming psychos. So the extent to which whatever you want to call our faction, the extent to which we're supporting Trump and MAGA is only to the extent that this country has not accepted the Trump pill. Accept the Trump pill. Accept the fact that the old nature of American liberal democracy, which is indeterminate, which is formalistic in the bourgeois sense, that is all dead. Politics has become fundamentally phenomenalized, and it has become libidinalized in a way that it was not before. Trump represents the sublimation. If you don't want to know what the word sublimation means, it basically means the sublime, right? It basically means the aestheticization. Well, not the aestheticization of politics, but the aestheticization of America as a determinate universal, a determinate community, a determinate polity, and a determinate material reality. So Trump, the reason there's a connection between MAGA and communism is because MAGA elects to recognize America as a determinate commons. America is a specific kind of community. It doesn't represent the universality of human rights and democracy and liberalism and all that kind of stuff. As you know, Joe Biden, in his speeches, keeps making a point to emphasize this copium and this bullshit that America is an idea. America is an idea. No, it's fucking not. America is not an idea. It's a community. It's a reality. It's a commons of some kind. It's a polity. It's not a fucking idea. So that's why we support Trump, okay? Our support of Trump corresponds to, it's a form of information warfare. Are we supporting Trump? No. What we do has no effect on Trump's political chances at all. But the reason we are signaling in a favorable way toward Trump is because it's our way of acknowledging the way Trump has fundamentally and irreversibly transformed this country. And we think that the way the Democrats are trying to resist that insight in the form of Joe Biden is a form of fascism. You're trying to resist this populist transformation of American politics. Thank you so much, Megaddafi. Trying to resist this irreversible transformation of American politics. And what do I mean by that? What do I mean by the transformation of American politics? I'm basically referring to the fact that politics has so first of all, not just politics, but the meaning of America, right? America as such has acquired the quality of being something specific and substantive instead of being something universal. What do I mean by that? Okay? So before we lived in a kind of, capitalist realism kind of world. Thank you so much, Emirio. Appreciate you so much. We lived in this kind of capitalist realism universe in which, the way in which we dwelled in America. As Americans, we think that our way of life and the American way encompasses the whole of being. right? So the way politics happens in this country is the way politics in general happens. The way America is experienced by us, it represents the general human experience, right? So that's why we have this arrogance as Americans, because we live with this naivety that our country, it's the American exceptionalism of ignorance, right? We live in this country and there's nothing specific about it. There's nothing determinate about it. It's not just one country among other countries. It is the only country, right? And all other countries are just like tourist destinations and so on and so on. And you see, and this is what liberals effectively believe. Liberals think we are the beacon of the free world. We're the leader of the free world. This is the free world. We represent the center of that. And, we have a responsibility to global human rights and global universalism, right? And, well, the sanctity of democracy, the sanctity of liberal democracy, all that kind of nonsense, right? So this is how politics existed before. Politics was not latent with the quality of partisanship. You didn't have armies. You didn't have online armies of devoted followers who are drawing the friend-enemy distinction on the basis of a specific kind of politics. Guys, notice this is so important. This is so fucking important, okay? And I credit where credit's due. I think the guy from Platypus, Chris Cutrone, made a very similar point leading up to Trump's election. So that guy had balls, right? He was kind of making a similar point. But basically, this is what we're dealing with, okay? Before Trump, politics in America was like a sports team. It was not a Schmittian political antagonism of absolute enmity. Enmity, right? At the end of the day, we're all Americans. That's what we used to say. Whether you supported Obama, whether you supported McCain, doesn't matter. I had teachers that supported one or the other. These aren't things you're going to get fired for. These aren't things you're going to get your life ruined over. It's certainly nothing you're going to get killed over, right? So it wasn't a real form of politics proper in the Clausewitzian sense. Remember, I am a Clausewitzian. I'm a Prussian theorist of politics. Whether that's Carl Schmitt or whether that's Clausewitz in the vein of Lenin. What Clausewitz is for Lenin, I want for Carl Schmitt, right, in the 21st century. But anyway, Clausewitz has this basic insight, which Lenin adopts, right, which is that politics is an extension of war and vice versa. Politics is not when you have one controlled system where you have these secondary contradictions, right, of polite civil disagreement, but at the end of the day, you're on the same team. That is not a political difference then. That's just a difference of opinion. That's just a difference of ideology. That is not an actual political difference. Political differences are differences that mark the friend-enemy distinction. Political differences is the same kind of difference between two combatants in a war. That's what a political difference actually is, okay? And here in America, the only extent to which we could articulate a politics proper after the post-war period, at the very least, right, is the following. On the one hand, you pledge your loyalty to the state, but not just the state, but all of its extra legal institutions and the federal agencies and the CIA, the entire imperialist war machine on the one hand, and then the criminal underworld on the other. So in the post-war period, if you were a communist, you're part of the criminal underworld, as far as the American polity is concerned, right? And then in the 80s and 90s, you see a very clear kind of ambiguous, terroristic kind of threat to the state machine. You see this weird alliance between Maoists and militiamen and even far-right people, and like all these like political criminals, the criminal political class, if you want to call it that. All those that actually possess some kind of real antagonism toward the ruling politics. So, and then finally, with the war on terror, this becomes formalized. And the war on terror, remember all the fake patriotism during the war on terror? Remember all that shit? That was basically an attempt to secure consensus from the American population to be patriotic for the status quo politics and to consign to the status of an enemy proper in the Clausewitzian sense all those who stand against the globalist order and the globalist status quo. So, for example, if you were a Ron Paul militiaman, you're in the same, you're an Alex Jones, Ron Paul militiaman, you're in the same boat as Al-Qaeda, right? On the one hand, Al-Qaeda, and on the other hand, America, right? And then this was the most disgusting, depraved, and sickening period in the history of the entire West, I would say. The whole history of the West proper, not just America. The whole West. The most sickening, disgusting, and depraved period was the era of neoconservatism. And I'll tell you why. During the Iraq War Bush era of neoconservatism, you also, corresponding to this fake community of the West, had this like nihilism of like, oh yeah, not only are we patriotic, we're patriotic because we have MTV and we have people showing their tits, and yeah, Team America, America, fuck yeah, South Park, all that shit. You know what I mean? You remember that shit? That was the most disgusting nihilistic period of the whole West, because it attempted to assimilate every kind of punk rock, anti-establishment, anti-status quo, counterculture, hippie, whatever, punk rock sentiment. Successfully, I should add. The Rage Against the Machine means to support the machine. Why? Because Clausewitzian political distinction was divided into two, right? It was divided into two parts. On the one hand, patriotism for Fox patriotism, maybe I should add, for the globalist-controlled deep state, and on the other hand, terrorist. So either you're a terrorist or you support the status quo, and that was the only political distinction. Now, my love for MAGA comes from the fact that for the first time, a Clausewitzian politics proper has become possible in this country. A mass movement that exists, that represents a specific political orientation outside of the status quo, which at the same time, I should add, does not represent terrorism, has opened up. And that's what Trump's movement was. That's what MAGA was. MAGA basically means that it means the destruction of the Clausewitzian political distinction between the status quo and the terrorist partisan. It means finally there are political distinctions, even in the realm of our democratic state. This is the beauty of the MAGA movement. The beauty of the MAGA movement is it says we can be loyal to our Constitution and to America and what America is, right? Without being loyal to the deep state and the FBI and the CIA and the mainstream media and the fucking corporations that have grown on top of it. So it's a fulfillment of the promise of Ron Paul. It's a fulfillment of the promise of Eugene Debs in some kind of sense. In some specific sense, in a very limited and qualified sense, it's a fulfillment of all those things. Because it says this is America. You, the status quo and the ruling class, you are not America. You are not America. This is America. From the people. That, my friends, is a beautiful thing. And all the people who cope and say, oh, MAGA, behind MAGA is the Department of Defense and all that kind of shit. Even if I granted all of that, it doesn't matter. Because the way it has affected politics in this country, whether you like it or not, has had the consequence of opening up a genuine Clausewitzian political distinction. Real politics proper. So for me, politics in America begins with MAGA. Begins with MAGA. MAGA represents the grounding of political power in American people, not in this uninterrupted continuum of the establishment and the status quo. So if you're a communist, you are a MAGA communist. If you believe that political power is going to come from the people, if you believe in power to the people or whatever, you're a MAGA communist. Right? You are now going to take for granted this chasm opened up by Trump, and you're going to create your own MAGA, your own alternate timeline for America. The way Trump created his, or the way MAGA represents an alternate timeline for America. Now, which alternate timeline is an open question. It's just like Ernesto Laclau had the distinction between the floating and empty signifier, right? MAGA is an empty signifier, if I'm getting the distinction correctly. It means which America, we don't know. What does MAGA mean? What America is MAGA referring to? Is it talking about an alternative timeline of a Christian theocracy? Maybe. Is it talking about the alternative timeline of white supremacism? Who knows? Is it talking about an alternative timeline of Peter Thiel monarchy? Who knows? Is it talking about an alternative timeline of Bernie Sanders if he wasn't a cuck? Who knows? Is it talking about an alternative timeline of communist Marxism-Leninism? Who knows? It doesn't matter. The ideology doesn't matter. There has been a real contradiction opened up, as in the form of a floating signifier. So this is the extent of our attachment to Trump. Just because we are pro-Trump doesn't mean, oh, what about Trump? You're missing the point. That's not what Trump's significant for. What about what Trump did for Israel? Is Trump known for doing that for Israel? No, he's not. Trump is known for opening up a Clausewitzian political antagonism in the heart of America. Trump is known for sublimating America into a form of a specific ideology, right? In a way, the beauty of Trump, it's almost as if Trump is a Platonist. Trump and Plato. Trump is a Platonist in some kind of sense. Trump makes America, in contrast to Biden, for Trump, America is a real eidos. It's a real idea. Or perhaps Trump is a Hegelian, because the Trumpian American idea is a particular idea. But Trump makes America something newly dependent upon. He turns it into a brand, effectively. He makes America into a brand. And I find that beautiful. I find that a beautiful thing. I find it a beautiful thing to turn America into a brand, because it gives back the power of this country somehow, on a libidinal level, if you want, to the people. America is ours. Ours to believe in, ours to enjoy, ours to make something of, ours to wield in our hand like a fucking rifle. Our America. That's what America is. Trump makes America a rifle wielded by the Schmittian partisan. And that's what I like about Trump. And that defines the extent to which we are Trump MAGA people. We are MAGA communists. Now, most of my community understands this. However, it has to be explained for people who are maybe on the right and they don't understand, why are these communists supporting Trump? Well, here's why. But to what ends? Toward the ends of creating a party of the American working class, and actually creating a form of American communism as a movement, an American communist movement. That's the ends. What do you mean to what ends? That's the ends. We want to create an American communist movement. If you want to make an American communist movement, you have to turn America into a signifier of real political distinction. Imagine being a communist under George Bush. See, you want to know why leftists and communists were kind of based under George W. Bush? Do you want to know why communists and leftists were pretty based under George W. Bush? They were based under George W. Bush just because you were pretty much considered a terrorist. You were fucking based. You know that tank guy that argued with me? You don't believe in the labor aristocracy! That was the type of dude you were, pretty much, under George W. Bush. If you were a communist, that was you. You were in the same boat as every other, political extremist. Whether they were far right, whether they were Islamist, doesn't matter. You're all in the same fucking boat. You're all outside. Whether you're a libertarian, militiaman, it doesn't fucking matter. Maoist, it don't matter. You're all illegal. You're all outside the state. And all of that changes with Obama, because Obama then formalizes this criminality, this illegality, in a way any fascist would, really. When LaRouche called Obama Hitler, that was based. That was very based. The comparisons between Obama and Hitler were very based. And they were very based because Obama did represent the consolidation of an empire which utilizes part of this criminal element to sustain its own inertia. Status quo using it to sustain its own inertia. So this was quite based, really. Quite based. And by the way, LaRouche deserves credit because he created that meme. You know every right-wing boomer who was sharing the Obama is Hitler meme? That all came from LaRouche. LaRouche is the one who created that whole meme. He was the originator of that meme. So he deserves credit for that. And he was right about that. And looking back, all of those boomers who called Obama Hitler were so fucking based. That was the most based. That was one of the most based. That was the opening in American politics of a new beginning. As soon as people became disillusioned with Obama, that was the new beginning. Right? You say, Haas, wasn't Obama the new beginning? No, Obama was not the new beginning. The people who became disillusioned with Obama, that was the new beginning. Whether it was Sanders or whether it was Trump doesn't matter. But that disillusionment with Obama created the new beginning for American politics. That's when we elected to become something as a people. That's when we said, this is not our state. We must make our own state.
Obama was Hitlerian. Just look at what happened to Gaddafi. Goes without saying.
Yeah, absolutely. That's correct. We are routinely accused of being MAGA shills. And this is also related to the Geoffrey Young thing. But again, they have not opened their eyes to the new reality of American politics. Once you have opened your eyes to the new reality of American politics, once that becomes no longer the primary contradiction in this country, we will be happy to move on from Trump. But until then, the primary contradiction in American politics is between MAGA and the status quo. And that is a fact. That's just a fact. Nothing is coming from the left. Nothing that poses a threat to the status quo. Nothing. Why? Because the left has not taken for granted Trump's surrealization of American political reality. Nothing. Nothing comes from the left. The left is just an extension of the same naive, unabridged continuum of progressivism, which Biden is on the same pathway. Biden is also on the same spectrum as leftists are. There's no qualitative break that has gone on there. It doesn't matter what the positions of leftists are. It doesn't matter what their self-proclaimed views are. The logos underlying their politics, if you will, is reactionary. Now, I'm saying reactionary in the actual, real Marxist sense of the word. The American left is reactionary. The reason it's reactionary is because it's trying to still turn back the wheels of time to an era of politics before Trump. We must awaken and accept how Trump has fundamentally transformed the nature of politics in our country. And he has transformed the nature of politics in our country because he has made political partisanship something that is felt at the tip of the spear. He has reduced political partisanship to the letter of the signifier and the letter of the word. He makes it so that you can be a partisan. You can really be a Clausewitzian partisan in this country. You can believe in an American politics. He reintroduces effectively the form of class struggle back into American politics. Now, that sounds crazy, Oz! Why is that? Not because Trump talks about class struggle, but because class struggle in politics, as Lenin pointed out, means the introduction of Clausewitzian enmity in politics. It means politics is a politics of real difference and expresses itself in the form. There is now a way for the class struggle to acquire form politically in America. for the first time in a very, very long time. Trump was he was a fucking savior for communists in this fucking country. Because before Trump, if you were a communist, you were just, you know what? If you were a communist before Trump, good luck with the FBI. Good luck with, you're just going to get fucked up. Well, look what happened to the Black Panthers. Look what happened during the Cold War and the McCarthyite era. All communists were saying, look, if you were any kind of political radical or extremist before Trump, you're going to have the same fate as Wacko. You're going to have the same fate as Ruby Ridge. You're going to have the same fate as Fred Hampton. You're just going to get fucking murked, and no one's going to give a shit because Americans never gave a fuck about politics at all. They didn't give a shit. You were just some terrorist and you were just some extremist. On the one hand, we have society, American society, where we all like George W. Bush and we're all eating hamburgers in willful, ignorant bliss. And then, yeah, who cares if the FBI is assassinating political dissidents and leaders? Nobody gives a fuck, right? That has changed. That, my friends, has changed. Now, real politics has been brought back to this country. Now people do give a fuck. Now there's MAGA versus Hitlerite Biden, trying to preserve that old, quite convenient status quo.